Welcome to the BC Falling and Bucking Endorsement Explained. This is based off of a presentation that I'd given a few years back at a workshop on the South Island. It is a condensed version, but the goal here is to help arborists and tree care service providers in the province of BC with an explanation of the requirement for this qualification and briefly how to reach qualification. A bit about myself. My name is Ryan Seneschal. I'm an arborist. I've been an arborist for about 20 years. I've worked South Island, Lower Mainland BC primarily, but I started my career in the province of Ontario in GTA Niagara region, and spent a little time working in the UK as well. Am I qualified? Yes, I am. Endorsement number 156. I've also taken some additional training through the Forest Safety Council, falling supervisor training. I'm an ITA climbing arborist, TCI, CTSP, ISA track. I've taken some training through Arboriculture Canada and originally educated at Humber College in urban arboriculture. So what is the endorsement? The falling endorsement, why is it needed? Well, unfortunately, there have been a lot of major incidents that have arisen both through the production, merch, timber operations, and through tree care services in the province of BC. A lot of fatal incidents, a lot of property damage, and at a huge cost to taxpayers and more importantly to disrupted lives or ended lives. And about 10 years ago, WorkSafe had decided they had had enough, and that led to the creation of the BC Faller Training Standard and the BC Faller Certification. The Faller endorsement, Falling and Bucking endorsement, came along not long after, and its launch struggled. Unfortunately, there wasn't really an industry association to shepherd in the process. I've encountered the same confusion from the start of the program to where we stand today. A lot of tree care service providers still believe they are exempt somehow from the qualification in performing urban tree felling or urban rural interface felling without qualification. So some of the challenges to reaching certification, one, the communication or the lack of training out there in the province, not only aimed at supervisors and owners, but at the workers themselves to reaching certification. It's a very different work environment. The BC Faller Training Standard is slanted heavily towards production felling operations for merch timber. It doesn't incorporate much in the way of arborist or urban conditions and work procedures. Most arborists have had limited or no exposure to production falling environment or qualified certified fallers. There's very few qualified F&B endorsed fallers in the program in BC right now, which is a structural dilemma. Obviously, if you lack access to a mentor or to those training opportunities, it's pretty tough for you to reach the standard, to reach that bar, just by reading some documents offline or following some followers on YouTube or Instagram and what have you. So through all these issues, even if you are in a position where you have the hours to challenge the faller's exam, there's a very high exam failure rate for arborists. Do you need to be endorsed if you're using a rope and mechanical advantage or an excavator to assist in felling, or if you cut the tree in half and then just fall the spar? There's very little room for interpretation in the language as it stands, and I think a lot of owners and supervisors and workers are quick to add their own interpretation that is wrong. So it needs to be made clear over and over again that if you're falling trees that are 6-inch in diameter, measured 12 inches from the ground, you're required to be certified. You must be endorsed or certified faller through the faller training standard in the province of BC, and that's WorkSafe BC has made that very clear. And I should point out that WorkSafe prevention officers are not going to give you much leeway on interpretation if they walk onto your site. Moving into the standard itself, the backbone of the standard is the BC Faller Training Standard info flips, which are available through the BC Forest Safety Council website in PDF form. You can order these printed info flips from the Forest Safety Council as well. They are a little bit of money, but worth having on hand. This is a useful training tool. It runs over the jargon, the terminology, and the expectations of the standard. This is the procedure. If you don't have it, if you don't know it, you're not ready to attempt the exam. Speaking of the Forest Safety Council, you can find all the documents needed to get you prepared for the exam, including the examination itself. These are useful resources. There's quite a bit more you can't see in this slide on the page. It's worth checking out though, reviewing those forms, and it'll be an eye-opener if you've never seen them before as far as what's expected to have a compliant operation for falling. Here's a quick snapshot of one of the sheets on the 47-page BC Faller Training Standard Field Exam. And if you're hoping to reach certification, you're going to spend a lot of time in this document, both familiarizing yourself with the makeup of the exam, the content of the exam, but also what passing grade is for each of the foundational skills and the actual scenarios. What's expected out of the high mark. So we've separated from excellent and acceptable and unacceptable. And then we've got some additional feedback on this side. A lot of this it may make sense up front, but without a mentor that's qualified in the Faller Training Standard, you may not be prepared. The QST or the examiner is going to not only be watching for the demonstration of these skills, but they're constantly going to be probing for your mental readiness on these skills. So for example, in the dangerous tree felling scenario, you're going to need to demonstrate comfortable stump height for forming your falling cuts. But before that even begins, they're going to ask a few questions to make sure you're ready to enter that, what can be a really sketchy situation. So are you prepared to describe what the reasoning is behind having your stump height at a comfortable height for forming falling cuts? You'll see down here it's a little cut off on the slide, but there's a big right hand. On just about every page in the exam will be stop evaluation criteria. So if mistakes are made and they're just in the unacceptable territory, you may be able to move on, but a lot of arborists don't move on when they reach one of these consequences. So it really pays to be aware of what these stop exam criteria are, and to practice, form your habits and your planning preparations to avoid running into this unfortunate situation. Faller qualifications, going back to the reg, there seem to be a lot of doubters out there, both tree service owners, supervisors, workers having a belief that they're somehow their experience alone prepares them to be falling trees, and that may be so, but the WorkSafe doesn't see that experience alone as meeting their requirements. So if you are falling trees 6-inch diameter or beyond, measured 12 inches from ground, the expectation is you have a qualification to do so. And those two qualifications for tree care purposes are going to be the Falling and Bucking Endorsement and the Faller Certification. You can find reference to this on WorkSafe OHSR Part 26, the regulation and the guideline. Practice. So if you don't have a mentor that's qualified, that's been through the program, the Faller Training Standard, you may be wasting your time. You may be picking up some habits that aren't going to prepare you for this exam. Not only that, but if you're performing falling without a qualified faller on site to begin with, there's no part of your operation that's compliant. So this is part of the issue, is accessing this mentoring, and they are out there. There are fallers that are available to subcontract. I find a lot of tree services they want to get these certified fallers and endorsed fallers in and out, because it adds quite a bit to the bottom line on a job. But we really should be taking more, speaking for the industry, should be taking more opportunities to make the most of these potential mentors on our site and getting our other staff ready to challenge. So a lot of arborists struggle in conditions that are a part of the faller exam, and again, the fail rate is quite high. Some arborists never make it past, or never make it to the point where they're able to perform these bucking tasks because their foundational skills just in the job planning and emergency preparedness section of the exam, in the technical interview at the beginning of the exam, are not met, and they pack up and head a long way home, having not even had the chance to fire up their chainsaw. The falling scenarios, part 11 to 16. If you're fortunate as a challenger to make it to this part of the exam, it's quite a demanding part, both mentally and physically. So finding as much practice as you can ahead of time to prepare yourself is critical. Working with a mentor to measure and document your results. One of the ways you can do that is by learning how to score stumps. You can see in the image, the illustration, the image at the right side of the frame. You'll see that this stump has been scored, and that's good criteria. If you don't measure it, you don't know. How do you improve? So this is a format. We'll show that in a later part of this presentation. Hopefully your mentor is good at taking notes. They're going to use the faller's exam more than likely to work on practice, identify gaps in your abilities or your knowledge, and work on those items to get you up to speed. Emergency response plan, I just need to acknowledge that emergency response in a falling operation is very different than most urban arboriculture situations. We aren't typically arranging helicopter evacuation or ETVs and so on. That doesn't matter as far as the faller training exam or faller training standard exam. It's going to be assumed that you are at a cut block beyond the 20 minutes surface travel time for an ambulance to get you to advanced medical treatment. So you're going to need to be brought up to speed, and this is where a mentor is really going to help familiarize you with the falling world and what is expected in an emergency response plan.